around 1/3 or 25 million people in Europe during the 1300s. This is a staggering number, which is why the bubonic plague was once the most feared disease in the world. The crazy thing is that the bubonic plague is still around today. Approximately 7 people are infected with the Black Death every year in the US, and it gets worse. People in parts of the world without access to medical supplies are getting sick and dying from the bacteria that causes the bubonic plague as you watch this video. But where did the Black Death actually come from? This is a mystery that scientists have been trying to solve for centuries. Now, an interdisciplinary team of researchers from the Max Planck Institute in Germany has tracked down what's likely the origin of the Black Death, and their conclusion might shock you. The bubonic plague is created by a bacteria called Yersinia pestis. It's a nasty microbe that most often gets into a body via a flea bite and immediately seeks out the lymph nodes, where it wreaks all types of havoc. Originally, people thought the bubonic plague was caused by rodents such as rats, but it wasn't the rodents themselves that infected the people. It was the fleas that hid within the hair that were to blame. When a flea carrying the Yersinia pestis bacteria bites a human, the bacteria gets into the bloodstream where it's carried throughout the body. The bacteria has a defense mechanism that allows it to fight off white blood cells, so it can continue on to a lymph node without being destroyed. It's here that the bacteria begins to reproduce. The incubation period in the disease is somewhere between 2 to 8 days, at which point the bacteria have multiplied to dangerous levels, and the body's lymph nodes begin to swell into painful buboes. This is where the bubonic plague derives its name. The lymph nodes swell as a result of the bacteria multiplying uncontrollably and hijacking the body for their own purposes. The infection begins to spread throughout the body, which results in the host becoming incredibly sick. The immune system tries desperately to control the infection, but since the lymph nodes have been compromised, it overreacts. This is actually the main cause of death associated with the bubonic plague. As the bacteria spreads from the lymph nodes into the bloodstream and around to the rest of the body, the immune system kicks into high gear, and the body goes into septic shock. The blood vessels begin to leak fluids, which decrease blood pressure and the amount of nutrients carried to vital parts of the body. Abdominal clotting can develop while main organs begin to fail, which eventually leads to death. The most horrendous part of the Black Death is what happens to the body itself. The lymph nodes swell to incredible sizes. This occurs most often in the armpits, groin, and neck. Normally, they become around the size of a chicken egg as the infected nodes push against the skin. While the lymph nodes swell, the infected person develops a high-grade fever as the immune system desperately tries to do everything it can to kill the bacteria. This nasty disease killed millions of people during the 1300s when the plague began, and continues to do so even in the present. So where did it come from, and how did the Black Death reach Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa, where it decimated the populations of those regions of the world? Until recently, most researchers believed the bubonic plague originated in China or East Asia. It was thought to have been brought to the West via the Silk Road and trade routes across the continent. However, researchers recently discovered that the bacteria actually originated in Central Asia in what is now Kyrgyzstan. The team believes that they've pinpointed the origin of the bacteria that started the bubonic plague, not just to the country but to a specific set of villages. Using archaeological, biological, and chemical evidence, scientists were able to trace the plague-causing bacteria back to Lake Issyk-Kul, located in the northeastern part of Kyrgyzstan. The first clue that led researchers to this discovery was the archaeological evidence from the sites of Karachigach and Barana, which are located in the Lake Issyk-Kul region. They indicated that an epidemic swept through the local trading community sometime between 1338 and 1339. Based on the analysis of the tombstones found in the area, several of these grave markers stated the cause of death was pestilence or disease. The fact that so many of the area died of an unknown disease right before the bubonic plague pandemic in Europe was a good indicator that the Lake Issyk-Kul region might have been the origin of the Black Death. Most scholars believe that the plague in Europe began to take off around 1347. The researchers from the Max Planck Institute explained that the time between the outbreak in Kyrgyzstan and the Black Death in Europe can be accounted for due to the fact that the disease had to evolve into multiple different strains before the pandemic could begin. The bacteria also needed to find a way across the Asian continent to Europe and North Africa. It most likely found this path aboard stowaway rats on trade ships and caravans. One of the most deadly plagues the world has ever seen might have started with a single flea on a single rat traveling west from